Mohan, you put out a tweet. Am I right in saying this whole kind of online hubbub around you started with a tweet? Is that right?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
let's put the tweet up. So this is the tweet that you put up. It looks like you were quote tweeting David Farrer, who says, "Sad, a tribute was blocked. Kirk's assassination is monumentally huge event. Only the assassination of the president or VP would reverberate more." So this is talking about in the House last week. There was a
Yes.
there was a blocking of a recognition of the passing of Mr. Kirk, pardon me, which I still do find a little bit peculiar because there has been many other, like two Democratic politicians were murdered a month before. No one ever has tried to stop the House. And so it's interesting that it was because of this one political commentator. That's the time we stop the House and try and, have it read into the records. Your response to that, Mohan? Charlie Kirk is a white supremacist, far-right figure. That there was an attempt to pay homage to him in New Zealand Parliament should give you a full list of whose backers of the far right are in New Zealand mainstream politics. Now, a New Zealand sitting MP has had a crack at you over that. Can I put it this way? Over your free
Yes.
speech. Maybe we could talk about that a bit later, about the free speech thing. But do you want to unpack that for us and tell us more about what your tweet is explaining?
Absolutely. And I think, the context of the tweet is what I see in my research as a global far right network,
Mm-hmm.
particularly with the US forming a core of that ecosystem. So I want to start with that point. So, in that sense, what I see in terms of patterns, and this is not just one individual, two individual on the fringe, but in the digital ecosystem, there seems to be a pattern of copying that which happens in the US far right, particularly in terms of five features of what I describe as the far right.
Mm-hmm.
First is the promotion of the great replacement theory that the white population is being displaced by migrants, particularly Muslims. Now, it's really important for us in Aotearoa to sort of pay attention to this because this really is the ideology that forms the infrastructure of the Christchurch terror attack. And it is an ideology that has shaped multiple terror attacks by white supremacists. So that's sort of the first element. The second element then connected to this is anti transgender hate. So the way these intersect is, first of all, in marking migrants and Muslims as the other, second, as transgender people as the other. And connected to this, then, is the third point, which is the purity of the white race, the hierarchy of men and women in the white race, and the role of women to reproduce. It plays out within the context of abortion rights. And sort of connected to that, then, is the fourth element, which is one of Christian nationalism. So the idea that the work of the nation is to produce and reproduce white Christian subjects that would uphold the sanctity and purity of the nation. And then the fifth element is how all of these elements then connect to dehumanizing speech, dehumanizing narratives, both in digital infrastructures, but also in offline spaces, which then directly connect with forms of violence. So, in that sense, there is a progression, if you will, from discourses of hate and othering to dehumanization to calls for violence to actual forms of violence. Now, that particular tweet then, it was directed at underscoring that if you look at Charlie Kirk and his body of work as a
Mm-hmm.
whole, you see all those five elements in what he did, particularly with Turning Point USA, with his professor watch list. He had started the professor watch list through Turning Point US, and this was one of the critical elements in consolidating power, if you will. And then that shaped the first set of elections with Trump, the role he played in the campaign, but also in the latest elections in terms of the anti-immigrant narrative. If you remember the narrative of Haitian immigrants eating pets, that is a narrative he had a key role in promoting through the Charlie Kirk talk show. And so those aspects really raise alarms about the ways in which sort of he was part of this infrastructure, but also how this is whitewashed into projecting him as a Christian conservative promoting family values. So, this is what I talk about as communicative inversion, which is the turning of materiality on its head. So, someone that has historically promoted hate, othering, divisiveness, violence is turned on its head into a promoter of free speech and an advocate for free speech. And this is a critical point. So when David Seymour talked, for instance, to the media about commemorating Charlie Kirk, he's framed as this great debater who was a promoter of free speech. And this idea of free speech is just the opposite of free speech. It is the kind of free speech that is actually, in Adorno's work, if you think about the F scale, this is the kind of speech that seeks to silence dissenting voices, particularly voices of those that are othered and marginalized. So it is free speech for those in the majority, for
Yeah.
men, for those in power. It is silencing of those who are at the margin. So that
Yeah.
really was the context of the speech, expressing concerns, therefore, about the mainstreaming of this hate into New Zealand politics through political figures.
The free speech one has been fascinating, and you bring up Charlie Kirk's the what did you call it, the professor watch list. We're already seeing that here in New Zealand. I mean, the platform in the weekend, if you see any New Zealand public servants, academics or educators celebrating the assassination of Kare Perks, please let us know. So this is, can I just be really honest about these guys who run this platform? This is a grift for them. They spent no time with or around Charlie Kirk. We do slop tube, right? This is slop tube. We get down into the dirt and we do all that kind of stuff. We pay attention to it. They don't. All of a sudden, though, there's some coin to be made. All of a sudden, this is the biggest news on the platform, and it has been quite fascinating to watch sort of arbiters of free speech. And I actually agree with this. The reason we need to protect free speech is not for the lovely and nice speech that we agree with. It's for the ugly speech. The reason we need to protect free speech is for the offensive things that we don't agree with. And these guys have been saying this all over the world for years. And right now, they're coming after people who are using their free speech to say offensive things they don't agree with. And they're putting them literally on lists, which I think is particularly scary.